Hello, students. Welcome back. Let's continue with the third chapter from your textbook Snapshots. The title of the chapter is Ranga's Marriage. Now, we are to begin from page number 19, first paragraph. So, the last thing that we read was that the narrator said a few things in praise of Ranga. He said that Ranga had this ability to assess people's mood, and he was also able to assess the character and personality of a person. And he was one of those boys who could analyze someone's worth very rightfully. The narrator further told about how Ranga greeted him, that he bent low and touched his feet, thereby seeking his blessings. And it was not the present day namaskara where children would do it casually with his head up towards the sun and standing stiff like a pole without even the joints moving and jerking his body as if it was either a wand or a walking stick. Rather, it was a proper namaskara, a traditional namaskara done by Ranga. And then at last the narrator, what he did, he blessed Ranga that he might get married soon, and he left. Let us read further. That afternoon, when I was resting, Ranga came to my house with a couple of oranges in his hand. A generous, considerate fellow. It would be a fine thing to have him marry, settle down, and be of service to society, I thought. For a while, we talked about this and that. Then I came to the point. Rangappa, when do you plan to get married? I am not going to get married now, he said. Why not? I need to find the right girl. I know an officer who got married only 6 months ago. He's about 30 and his wife is 25, I am told. They will be able to talk lovingly to each other. Let's say I married a very young girl. She may take my words spoken in love as words spoken in anger. Recently, a troupe in Bangalore staged the play Shakuntala. There is no question of Dushyanta falling in love with Shakuntala if she were young. Like the present day brides, is there? What would have happened to Kalidasa's play? If one gets married, it should be to a girl who is mature. Otherwise, one should remain a bachelor. That's why I am not marrying now. So what has happened over here? That afternoon, Ranga visited the author with a few oranges, which the narrator thought was quite thoughtful of him. Now, thinking of how nice Ranga is, the author thought that it would be a good deed to have him married to a girl just as nice as him. So, after they chatted for a while, and then the narrator straight away asked Ranga about his views on getting married. So, to this question of the narrator, Ranga expressed his views on marriage that he had no plans to marry at present because he intended on finding the right girl. He had not yet found the right girl. Therefore, he was not marrying. Further, Ranga gives the example of an officer who got married at the age of 30 to a woman aged 25. And he says that since they are both adults, so they would be able to understand each other's actions and behavior much easily, since there was not much age gap between them. And then the narrator says that suppose he finds a girl who is very young, then there might be possibility that she could, Ranga here says that suppose he finds a girl who is very young, and then there might be a possibility that she could misunderstand his words spoken in love as words spoken in anger, or she would misinterpret his actions because of not being mature enough. Okay, Ranga here even mentions about a troupe which presented the play Shakuntala, the love story of Shakuntala and Dushyanta from Mahabharata. So he says that this play, Shakuntala, which was written by Kalidasa, this play would also have not existed if Shakuntala had been younger, much younger. Because if she would have been much younger, then Dushyanta wouldn't have fallen in love with Shakuntala, and neither would have he married her. Okay, so there was not much age gap between Dushyanta and Shakuntala as well. And this is why he intends on staying a bachelor till he finds the right girl. Okay, so he chooses to stay as a bachelor rather than marrying a young childlike girl. Okay, let us read further. Is there any other reason? A man should marry a girl he admires. What we have now are arranged marriages. How can one admire a girl with milk stains on one side of her face and wetness on the other, or so young that she doesn't even know how to bite her fingers? One a neem fruit, the other a bitter gourd. Exactly, Ranga said, laughing. I was distressed that the boy who I thought would make a good husband had decided to remain a bachelor. After chatting for a little longer, Ranga left. I made up my mind right then that I would get him married. So here Ranga now says to the narrator that a man should marry the girl whom he actually admires rather having an arranged marriage like the people in the village of Hosahalli had, like the people in that time had, okay, arranged marriages. So he supported love marriages rather than arranged marriages. Now Ranga further adds on that one cannot admire or like a girl who has milk stains on one side of her mouth and wetness on the other. By saying this, he conveys it clearly to the narrator that he is against arranged marriages, and he is totally against marrying young girls who had no manners, no sense enough to take care of their own face. Okay. Then he says, or so young that she doesn't even know to bite her fingers. Now this expression too reveals Ranga's views about girls. The phrase bite her fingers depicts a small child biting its fingers, which perhaps describes a child's innocence. Basically, Ranga tells about this wish to not to marry such an innocent child like young girl who is not even mature enough to handle herself individually without depending upon anyone. Okay, then the narrator then says, one a neem fruit, the other a bitter gourd. Both of these things are bitter in taste. So this is a proverb, one a neem fruit, the other a bitter gourd, which means that one fault leads to other faults or other defects. So marrying a young girl would definitely bring bitter experiences in Ranga's life. Okay. Now after hearing all this from Ranga, the narrator got very much disappointed and distressed. He was tensed as he had this thought that Ranga would make a very good husband, okay, since he was a very mannered person. So he thought that he would also make a very good person, okay. But Ranga had planned to remain a bachelor, okay, until he could find a girl of his own choice as per his expectations. So after chit-chatting about all this, Ranga left the narrator's house, and at this point the narrator made up his mind that he would surely get Ranga married. Let us read ahead. Rama Rao's niece, a pretty girl of 11, had come to stay with him. She was from a big town, so she knew how to play the veena and the harmonium. She also had a sweet voice. Both her parents had died, and her uncle had brought her home. Ranga was just the boy for her, and she the most suitable bride for him. So here the narrator now introduces us to a new character in the story named Ratna, and he tells us that she's 11 years old and she is Rama Rao's niece. Also, she had lost both her parents, so her uncle brought her from the big town to his home with him in order to make her live with him only, since she was now parentless. And also, she had a great voice and she could play harmonium and veena. So, this is it that we know about Ranga right now. About Ratna. So the narrator thought that Ranga and Ratna would make a great pair. Let's read ahead. Since I was a frequent visitor to Ramarao's place, the girl was quite free with me. I completely forgot to mention her name. Ratna it was. The very next morning I went to their house and told Ramarao's wife, I'll send some buttermilk for you. Ask Ratna to fetch it. Ratna came. It was Friday, so she was wearing a grand sari. I told her to sit in my room and requested her to sing a song. I sent for Ranga. While she was singing the song Krishnamurti in front of my eyes, Ranga reached the door. He stopped at the threshold. He did not want the singing to stop, but was curious to see the singer. Carefully, he peeped in. The light coming into the room was blocked. Ratna looked up and, seeing a stranger there, abruptly stopped. So what has happened over here? Ratna, the narrator says that Ratna was quite familiar with the narrator as he visited Ramarao's place very frequently. Okay, she was very much friendly and comfortable with the narrator. Now here the narrator thought of a plan to introduce Ratna to Ranga. Okay, so he went to Ramarao's house and told Ramarao's wife to send Ratna to his place as he wanted to send some buttermilk for them. Okay, now since it is told that since it was Friday, so Ratna had worn a beautiful grand sari, so she came all dressed up and to the narrator's house, and the narrator requested then Ratna to stay at his house, to sit in his room, and he insisted upon her to sing a song titled Krishnamurti in front of my eyes. Now here the narrator also sends someone to call Ranga to his house. Okay, he wanted to arrange this meeting. He wanted Ranga to see Ratna here at this moment. Therefore he had sent someone to call Ranga to his house. Okay, and just as Ratna was singing this song Krishnamurti, Ranga arrived at the narrator's door. Now Ratna's beautiful melancholic voice touched Ranga's ears, and thus he did not want to interrupt the singing, so he stood at the door. And he was very much curious to see the singer, and very cautiously he peeped in. He tried to have a look which disturbed the light which was coming in from outside to the room of the narrator. Okay, which was coming inside the room. Now on seeing a stranger, Ratna immediately stopped her singing. She became nervous. Okay, so she abruptly stopped her singing. Let's read ahead. Suppose you buy the best quality mango. You eat it slowly, savoring its peel. Before biting into the juicy flesh, you do not want to waste any part of it. Before you take another bite, the fruit slips out of your hand and falls to the ground. How do you feel? Ranga's face showed the same disappointment when the singing stopped. You sent for me, he said. He asked as he came in and sat on a chair. Ratna stood at a distance, her head lowered. Ranga repeatedly glanced at her. Once our eyes met, and he looked very embarrassed. No one spoke for a while. So here the narrator compares Ranga's situation to the disappointment of dropping a best quality mango on the floor just before having to truly enjoy the taste of it. Now it was as if something great had been stolen from before one could actually enjoy it. So Ranga had just started to listen this melodious voice of this girl, but then as soon as he entered, the voice stopped. Ratna stopped singing because she herself was, she felt awkward, she felt hesitant to continue with his singing in the presence of this stranger. And Ranga then asked the narrator why he called for him, and Ratna, because she was also standing over there, so she felt very shy, and thus she was looking downwards, whereas Ranga again and again, secretively, very frequently, he was glancing at her. And then here the narrator says that it was once that the eyes of the narrator and Ranga met, and that moment was a very awkward moment, and there was this awkward silence in the room. Further, let us read. It was my coming in that stopped the singing. Let me leave. Words, mere words. The fellow said he would leave, but did not make a move. How can one expect words to match actions in these days of Kali Yuga? Ratna ran inside, overcome by shyness. So here, after things went a bit awkward in between Ratna, the narrator, and Ranga. So Ranga then said that he feels it was his coming in the house of the narrator that stopped the singing, so he must leave. However, he did not do so. He didn't left. Okay, he didn't leave the house of the narrator, though he said he would leave, but he didn't leave. So the narrator makes fun of him because he had no intentions of leaving the house of the narrator. Okay. Then the narrator jokes about it and says that one cannot expect actions and words to match in this world of, in this time of Kali Yuga. After a while, Ranga asked, "Who is that girl, Swami? Who's that inside?" The lion wanted to know. The he-goat, who had taken shelter in the temple, replied, "Does it matter who I am? I am a poor animal who has already eaten 9 lions. I have vowed to eat one more. Tell me, are you male or female?" The lion fled the place in fear, it seems. Like the he-goat, I said, "What does it matter to either of us who she is? I'm already married and you aren't the marrying kind." So here what has happened? After a few minutes of the awkward silence, Ranga finally asked the narrator about the girl. Now the narrator compares the situation with the very infamous story of the he-goat and the lion, where the narrator is the he-goat and Ranga is the lion. Now it's a story in which this he-goat scares the lion by his cleverness. So the narrator also similarly trapped Ranga, and he was planning to get him married with Ranga with his cleverness. So as the lion was trapped by the he-goat, similarly the narrator was trapping Ranga. So he compares Ranga to the lion. He mentions that Ranga is the lion, and the narrator calls himself as the he-goat. Now the narrator has used this comparison to convey the idea that he was the mediator who had already got 9 young men like Ranga married, and Ranga was the 10th one. It was now Ranga's turn to fall prey to his desire of getting him married, of having him married. Now getting someone married by the narrator is equal to eating 1 lion by the narrator. Okay, and the narrator is the he-goat. Okay, fine. So the narrator replies very cleverly, and he plans on seeing Ranga's interest in knowing about Ratna. And then he says that, who she is not of that much importance, because he himself is already married. That the narrator says that he himself is married, and Ranga doesn't intend on, he has no plans to on marrying anytime soon. So it's not a matter to know who that girl was. Okay. Further, very hopefully he asked, "She isn't married then?" His voice did not betray his excitement, but I knew it was there. "She was married a year ago." His face shriveled like a roasted brinjal. After a while, Ranga left, saying, "I must go. I have work at home." I went to our Shastri the next morning and told him, "Keep everything ready to read the stars. I'll come later." I tutored him in all that I wanted him to say. I found no change in Ranga when I met him that afternoon. "What's the matter? You seem to be lost in thought." I said, Nothing's wrong, believe me." "Headache? Come, let's go and see a doctor." Now, hearing the narrator's reply, Ranga got very excited. Although he did not show that excitement on his face, but it was quite evident from his expressions that he was very much excited about this new girl in the house of the narrator. Now, full of hope and wish to know who that girl was, he asks the narrator if that girl isn't married yet, to which the narrator replies that she is, and probably a year ago she was already married. Now, Ranga was disappointed and disheartened, and it was clearly all over his face. That disappointment was clearly seen on his face. And he then gave this excuse that he had some work, and he left the house of the narrator. Now, our narrator, having staged certain liking in the mind of Ranga for Ratna, he went on to complete his play. He had already planned what is to be done next. So he went to the village Shastri and told him everything that he had that he had to say when he visited him next. He had planned some things with the Shastri, that he says that be prepared with the stars, that you need to say something regarding the stars of Ranga and Ratna. And then further, then he met Ranga that afternoon, and he carried the same and then Ranga, he says that Ranga was still disappointed. He was still in a bad mood, and that bad mood, that disappointment could be seen on his face that afternoon too. And upon asking, when he asked the narrator, when he asked what happened to you, to which he replied that no, nothing much, nothing wrong with me, he says, believe me. And then he says, the narrator says, "Headache, come, let's go and see the doctor." So the narrator tells him that they should go and see a doctor since he was having a headache. And then what happens? Let's see. Let's read ahead. "I have no headache. I am my usual self. I went through the same thing when the process of choosing a girl for me was going on. But I don't think that could be a reason for your present condition." Ranga stared at me. "Come, let's go and see Shastri," I suggested. "We'll find out whether Guru and Shani are favorable for you or not." Ranga accompanied me without any protest. As soon as Shastri saw me, he exclaimed, "What a surprise, Shyama! Haven't seen you for a long time." So here Ranga insists the narrator that everything is fine, and he was just okay. He didn't had any headache or any kind of thing. He was just as usual self, and he is just normal. He was in his normal self. This is what he insists to the narrator. But the narrator very wittily, very cleverly makes a remark that he himself went through the same feelings when he was seeing girls for himself to get married And then he immediately, after giving this statement to this boy Ranga, he immediately mentions that this could not be the reason for Ranga, as he was not seeking any girl. So this could not be the reason for him feeling so disappointed or so disheartened, like the way he was feeling, Ranga. Now furthermore, he suggested that they should go to the Shastri to see the stars, if the Guru, the Jupiter and the Shani for Saturn, they were in favor of Ranga or not. So Ranga, without any protest, he went with the narrator. So it is then said, Shastri saw me. As soon as Shastri saw me, he exclaimed, "What a surprise, Shama! Haven't seen you for a long time." Now, we all know that Shama, the narrator, and this Shastri had recently met regarding, they were planning to tell certain things in front of Ranga about his stars and stuff. So here they both are enacting. This Shastri is also very clever, and as instructed by the narrator, he is also enacting, and he says that, "What a surprise, Shama! Haven't seen you for a long period of time. It had been months or maybe days that it had been a long time that he had met the narrator." Okay, so he was all lying here. It's all a part of plan, the narrators and Shastri's plan. Okay, let's read further. Shama is none other than your servant, the narrator of this tale. I got angry and shouted, "What? Only this morning?" Shastri completed my sentence. "You finished all your work and are now free to visit me." Had he not done so, I would have ruined our plan by bursting like grains that are kept in the sun to dry. I was extremely careful of what I said afterwards. Shastri turned to Ranga. "When did the young son of our accountant clerk come home? What can I do for him? It's very rarely that he visits us." So here the narrator reveals his pet name, Shama, as they called him in the village. Now the narrator here became angry and he shouted on the Shastri, "What? Only this morning?" So the narrator felt that Shastri was lying because they saw each other that morning, but the reality was that the narrator had forgotten that all this was a part of a plan. Okay, so however, what happened? However, Shastri interrupted in between and completed the narrator's sentence and saved the entire situation by saying that this morning only you finished all your work and are now free to visit me. So here the narrator realized what he was just about to do, and he took an extra care from that moment. Okay, now Shastri continued his role and he acted surprisingly on seeing Ranga and said what he could do for Ranga, and it was very rare that the son of the accountant clerk visited them. "Take out your paraphernalia. Our Rangappa seems to have something on his mind. Can you tell us what's worrying him? Shall we put your science of astrology to the test?" There was authority in my voice as I spoke to Shastri. He took out 2 sheets of paper, some cauries, and a book of palmyra leaves, saying, "Ours is an ancient science, Ayya. There's a story to it, but I won't tell you that story now. This is not a Harikatha which allows you to tell a story within a story. You may get bored. I'll tell it to you some other time." So here the narrator asks the Shastri to take out all his tools, paraphernalia, the equipments which were needed to read the position of the stars and everything. So the narrator asks the Shastri to take out all his tools to help them solve whatever is going on in Ranga's mind. Now the Shastri took out his essentials and told them that this is all ancient science, but he won't recite the story right now at that moment because they would then get bored of it. But he does intend on telling it some other day, that story some other day. Further, let us read. Shastri moved his lips fast as he counted on his fingers and then asked, "What's your star?" Ranga did not know. "Never mind," Shastri indicated with a shake of his head. He did some more calculations before saying in a serious tone, "It's about a girl." I had been controlling my laughter all this while, but now I burst out laughing. I turned to Ranga. Exactly what I had said. "Who is the girl?" "It was your humble servant who asked the question." So here Shastri moved again. He was enacting perfectly here, the Shastri as well. So the Shastri moved his lips while counting quickly and asked Ranga about his star, which he did not know about. And Shastri implied that it's manageable, okay, that he was not knowing his stars, so it could be managed. Now he appeared to be doing certain calculations, the Shastri, and after a moment he indicated that Ranga has a girl on his mind. Okay, finally the problem because of which Ranga was not feeling well, or because of which he was feeling very sad, the problem which was told by the Shastri was that Ranga had a girl on his mind. Now, even after trying his best, the narrator, he could not control his laughter. Okay, he thus posed the question to Shastri, asking about the details of the girl. So, who's the girl? It was your humble servant who asked the question. Okay, this is what he asks to the Shastri. Shastri thought for a while before replying. "She probably has the name of something found in the ocean. Kamala, maybe. Could it be Pachi? Moss? Must it be moss if it's not Kamala? Why not pearl or Ratna, the precious stone?" "Ratna, the girl in Ramarao's house is Ratna. Tell me, is there any chance of our negotiations bearing fruit?" "Definitely," he said, after thinking for some time. There was surprise on Ranga's face, and some happiness. I noticed it. "But that girl is married," I said. Then I turned to him. His face had fallen. So here Shastri thought, and he replied that the girl is likely to have a name of something found in the ocean. Okay, so they are enacting very cleverly over here. Everything is planned. So their guesses include the names Kamla, Pachi, Moss, Pearl, and then suddenly Shastri says Ratna. He calls out the name Ratna. All out of it came together now to a girl named Ratna. Okay, Ratna, who's the niece of Ramarao. That's it. Ranga was thinking about her only. Okay, this we all know that it was Ratna who was in the mind of Ranga, and because of that news that she was already married, so he was feeling very much disappointed. Now Ranga was both surprised and happy because Shastri's predictions were right. Okay, and he immediately became disappointed when he recalled this news, or when he recalled that she was already married. Okay, further, "I don't know all that. There may be some other girl who's suitable. I only told you what our Shastra indicated." Shastri said, "We left the place. On the way, we passed by Ramarao's house. Ratna was standing at the door. I went in alone and came out a minute later." So the Shastri said that he did not know all that whether it was Ratna or some other girl, and says that there might be some other girl suitable for Ranga. Okay, he says that he was just telling all that he could read from the Shastras. Now they played this name guessing game in order to make the acting look more real. So on the way, after all this happened, they left the Shastri's place. So on the way back home, both Ranga and the narrator crossed Ramarao's house, and there at the door they saw Ratna, who was standing over there. And it was Shama alone who went inside Ramarao's house for a minute, and he came back. Now what he said after he came back from Ramarao's house, after he came outside Ramarao's house: "Surprising, this girl isn't married, it seems. Someone told me the other day that she was. What Shastri told us has turned out to be true after all. But Rangappa, I can't believe that you have been thinking of her. Swear on the name of Madhavacharya and tell me, is it true what Shastri said?" I did not know whether anyone else would have been direct, Ranga admitted. There's greater truth in that Shastra than we imagine. What he said is absolutely true. So when the narrator came back, when he came outside Ramarao's house, he announces that fortunately Ratna is not married, and someone might have wrongly conveyed it to him about her being married. Now the narrator expresses his amazement at the fact that he has been thinking about that Ranga had been thinking about Ratna, and he asks him to swear upon the truth, that he actually wanted to hear that truth from the mouth of Ranga himself. Now, to his surprise, to the narrator's surprise, Ranga told him the truth, that whatever the Shastri said, it was all true. And his belief in all the Shastras had strengthened after what incident happened at the place of the Shastri. Okay. Further, Shastri was at the well when I went there that evening. I said, "So, Shastri Gale, you repeated everything I had taught you without giving rise to any suspicion. What a marvelous Shastra yours is." He didn't like it at all. "What are you saying?" "What you said to me was what I could have found out myself from the Shastras. Don't forget, I developed on the hints you had given me. Tell me, is this what a decent man says?" Now Shama went to his friend Shastri that evening when he was near the well, and he remarked about how well he did what Shama told him to. Okay, how well he enacted whatever their plan was. Now the Shastri seemed to not like what the narrator was saying. Thus he says that whatever he could very clearly see in the Shastra, that is all what he said, and he completely disagreed with having enacted and staged the entire conversation, because he says that he just developed things on his own out of the hints which were given by the narrator to the Shastri. Okay. Further, Rangappa had come the other day to invite me for dinner. "What's the occasion?" I said. "It's Shama's birthday. He's 3. "It's not a nice name, Shama," I said. "I'm like a dark piece of oil cake. Why did you have to give that golden child of yours such a name? What a childish couple you are, Ratna and you." I know. It is the English custom of naming the child after someone you like. Your wife is 8 months pregnant now. Who's there to help your mother to cook?" "My sister has come with her. I went there for dinner. Shama rushed to me when I walked in and put his arms round my legs. I kissed him on his cheek and placed a ring on his tiny little finger. Allow me to take leave of you, reader. I am always here, ready to serve you. You were not bored, I hope." So what has happened over here? Now the narrator takes us a few years forward, where we come to know that Ranga and Ratna are happily married, and they had a 3-year-old son, and Ratna was again, 8 months pregnant again, and Ranga's sister had come over to help them. Okay, now Ranga had come to the place of the narrator in order to invite him for the third birthday event occasion of his son, as it was Shama's birthday. And yes, here we also come to know that the couple named their son after the narrator, as it is a common foreign tradition to name your child after someone you truly admire. Okay, so when the narrator went there for dinner, Shama came running. The boy, the baby of 3 year, the son of Ranga and Ratna, he came running to him, to the narrator, only to show his love by holding his leg. Okay, he kind of hugged him, and then the narrator kissed the son of Ranga and Ratna, and he gave him a ring. Okay, and further he says, allow me to take leave of you, reader. I am always here ready to serve you. You were not bored, I hope. So the narrator writes an ending note to all the readers, hoping that they were not bored. So we have ended the chapter, and please reread the chapter in detail, mark the difficult words, jot down the doubts if you have any. We'll take up the doubts in the next session, and also we'll discuss the question answers in the next session. Thank you.